Success Stories. I am Scott King, and we appreciate you joining in on this live channel we got here. I am joined here with my co-host, Robyn Dobbins. Uh, so, how this show works, this is our second show. This is my first time hosting the show myself. Is we have a guest on here that have had success with some sort of low carb way of eating, be it carnivore, keto, anything like that. Myself and Robyn lean a little bit towards you'll hear us talking a lot about NSNG, or no sugar, no grains, but that doesn't mean everything is going to be an NSNG thing. It's just more of a low carb way of eating. So the point of this show is to get people on here that have had success with it and ask questions, just hear their story, their journey. Everyone's journey is different, and everybody's story will hit somebody differently. And we just really are passionate. Robyn and I are both passionate about this way of eating and this lifestyle and all the improvements, not just physically, but mentally as well. And there's so much people that can benefit from it. So again, it's just our passion to get it out there and just let other people know about it. We ask you to subscribe, like, share the channel. We need growth on this to get out to everybody we can. It's every other Thursday for right now, 7 p.m. Central Time. There, after the introduction part of it and the guest of the day background, then you'll have a chance to chat and ask questions with that person, with our staff. We don't have a staff; it's just Robyn and I. But can ask questions. We'll try to help you along with the journey. So, with that said, our guest this evening is Daniel Seedorf, and he just disappeared temporarily. He's having some connectivity issues. So I'll just keep yammering until he comes back. So Daniel, he is an NSNG person. So we call him Robies. A while back, Vinnie Tortorich, the creator of No Sugar, No Grains, he was on Mike Rowe's podcast. Well, he's been on her twice. So when we say a Robie, Daniel is a Robie 1.0. The second wave after the podcast was the Robie 2.0. So makes sense, I would think. But anyhow, so I will have to ask Daniel the questions about how long he's been, NSNG. I don't know how long it's been since the Robie 1.0 have been here, but we'll get it from the horse's mouth. But anyhow, while we're waiting for him to pull up, Daniel is a firefighter. I don't want to give you too much information, so I'll just kind of not dabble too deep into it. Daniel's a firefighter, and he's significantly improved his life with a healthy way of eating, low carb way of eating. The dude has set so many challenges for himself, and just daily feats, I guess you would say, for himself, and he's done quite impressive. There's just some amazing things he's done, and he's super encouraging. And so there's things that he's seen in his career as a firefighter with the health of first responders that's concerning to him, and he wants to try to help out people on their journey. So bear with me 1 second. It looks like Daniel might be trying to get back on here. I can't quite tell. I don't want to have a bunch of dead ears.
Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you, Daniel. Okay, so again, you're back. Thank you very much. You're good. You're good. Don't worry about it. You're making me learn a lot right here now, so it's fine. It works out well. So I've already introduced you. Again, Daniel Seedorf. Please just go into your story, your background, what got you into this way of eating. I introduced you as being a Robie 1.0. I can't remember the time frame on that, but take it away and just kind of tell us your story.
Yeah, just so you know, I could hear everything you were saying. And from my screen, everyone is where they're supposed to be. So I don't know, it's that mysterious network connectivity voodoo that is going on. Not to mention, here in Alabama, we have to pipe in all our internet from Georgia. So anyways, so that first wave of Robies, if you will, we're coming up on 2 years ago. And so had always been a pretty avid listener of Mike Rowe, back when he was doing the short form stories on his podcast. And then, but then I've enjoyed his longer format as well. And when he started having these guests on, it just, it's pretty interesting. And they generally run long enough for me to listen to on my commute to work. So anyways, I didn't hear this interview with Mr. Tortorich live when it first came out. It might have been a few weeks after, but anyways, everything that he was saying just like was clicking for me. I am a fairly unconventional person in my way of thinking. I like to think that I am open-minded, and when I hear someone speak factually and with common sense, I listen, especially if it's going against the conventional narrative. Okay, the stuff that's being pushed by, the powers that be, if you will. So anyway, so I just listened to all that he had to say, and it just, I don't know, the wheels and the cogs in my brain started to line up, and so in that moment, I was already very aware that I had some health issues. I had experienced a series of incidences that were basically wake-up calls, as each one happened, I just did not know what my best route was to address it. The weight was pretty much an obvious thing, and that was the thing that, when I saw a number show up on the scale that was shockingly high for me, and I had never entertained that I would be that heavy. We can't, mirrors don't lie, but we can lie to ourselves, but when a number speaks to you, it just solidified. So just to kind of go over some of my history and stuff, I actually come from a whole food, real food, single ingredient type of background. We started a farm several years ago, and so I was very into sustainable agriculture. I still am, still very much advocate for it, local foods and everything. But even within that community, there was a lacking of understanding about metabolic health for a lot of people. Like, a lot of people are under the misconception that if I'm eating grass-fed beef and pasture-raised chicken and grass-fed grain-free milk that is unpasteurized, that somehow that is going to negate all my bad habits. It's going to make up for it. And I was very much in that camp. And I was also in the mindset of, well, if it's organic and it's homemade, well, that's a double stamp of approval. And so how can it be bad for me? So, so my diet was very, very carb heavy in the form of, like pancakes or waffles or biscuits and gravy almost every single day. We were a very protein-centric family. We still are. And I never had subscribed to the idea that fat was unhealthy. But so I was both a very carby, high carb consuming, along with a high fat and protein consuming individual. And I do believe that that combination was working bad against me. But to top it all off, I was also consuming much larger quantities of alcohol than I wanted to admit. You know, it was a period in my life that becoming very stressful, both at home. You know, if you want to test yourself and your marriage and your family's fortitude, just start a farm and try to make a living at it. But and then on top of that, just you know, at that time I was newly promoted, and I'd been in the fire service, you know, for several years, and then just it continued to just stack up. The stressful calls, the sleep deprivation, being up all night, and then not addressing these problems. And so I was giving into the cheap dopamine that you get from eating too much of the wrong stuff, drinking too much, namely beer, and then just unhealthy habits like not exercising, sitting on my butt watching you know, TV, or scrolling through, you know, death scrolling through my phone. I used to be an extremely avid reader, and it would depress me to contemplate how little reading I now do. So anyways, all that just it started to get where it was more and more noticeable to me. I don't really know if anybody else noticed. I would bring it up to a friend or a family member, and I think a lot of times they just didn't want to hurt my feelings. And so, you know, that's, oh no, you're fine. You know, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't have a Snickers bar every now and then. And so I would absorb that and say, you know what, I am fine. There's nothing wrong with me, and there's nothing wrong with eating this Reese cup. Except I was eating 4 and 5, you know, king size. You know, I mean, it was ridiculous. And so anyways, the events that took place that started getting my attention, aside from, you know, just my apathy, and I recognized that I had it. I was just too lazy to really do anything about it. But like I just didn't want to work out, period. And that is so not good. I am a firefighter, you know, and that's really a problem that we have in the entire public safety community is we slip into an apathy that is fueled by cynicism and being disconnected, and it just leads into a lot of self-destructive behavior with the consumption of alcohol, tobacco, and even illicit drugs that you know just compounds it. But anyways, so let's see, I was talking about events. So I knew that you know, and I was trying to attack my health just with exercise. And, you know, but I would work out and then I would get injured. I have inflamed my shoulders multiple times. Thankfully, I don't think I've ever torn anything, but you know, I've had trips to orthopedists and had cortisone shots and physical therapy, but then, you know, pain is a great deterrent from doing anything, including things that are good for you. And so because I was always in pain, that further fueled my lack of desire to exercise. But so, I don't know. So I've got a friend, childhood friend. We grew up together more or less, graduated from high school together, who now lives in California. We reconnected, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago. And I learned that he was experiencing some really significant health problems. And he was actually on a liver donor transplant list. So he was looking for a donor. And that was dragging on and on and on. And so I got to thinking about it, and I decided to explore if I could be a living donor for him, because the liver is an organ that you can take a part of and it will regenerate. Okay. It's I think the only organ that actually regenerates. If you slice off a piece, it will actually grow into a whole new organ. Anyways, you know, he and I are matching blood types, and I went through like a battery of psychological interviews with doctors from UC San Francisco, and then we set up an appointment for me to go out and have a physical, a medical examination to determine if my health was where it should be for someone who's going to be having a part of his liver sliced out of him. So I flew out there, and that was the most intensive physical I have ever experienced. Even the times that I've had mandatory physicals for the fire department, nothing compared to what I went through there. It was everything you can think of. I mean, literally, I got scanned every which way except for an MRI. I got out of that because of a childhood incident that left me with a BB in my lip. And so, as you know, MRIs are a giant magnet, and that would have made a mess in there. So, anyways, go through all those tests, and you know, they're like, "Hey, thanks for coming. We'll be in touch." Flew home. Just a couple of days later, I get a phone call from the nurse who was handling his case, and she calls me and basically breaks the news. She says, "We determined that you are not a suitable candidate." Still gets to me. She said, "Honestly, you yourself have a fatty liver, and it is extremely enlarged. You should talk to a doctor, and you know, speak with a nutritionist, dietitian, you know, somebody to get you on a liver cleansing, you know, protocol." So honestly, when she was telling me all that stuff about what I, you know, needed to do to address my health, I kind of ignored it. For one thing, I just felt so bad that I had given my buddy hope, and now that was taken away. Thankfully, I think it was less than 2 weeks later, a donor liver came available, and he was able to get a liver, and he's still with us and doing very, very well for the most part. He's had a number of complications from it, but his quality of life is greatly improved. So really, when I think back on it, I think back on how that event, was, but I'll just say that was God tapping me on the shoulder, to say, hey, you've got something going on. You need to take care of it. Well, I more or less ignored it. I did initially say, hey, I'm going to have to cut back on or cut out the beer, but I'm going to have to cut back. And I did for a month, but then it just crept back in. I was also a tobacco user at that time. I had been ever since I was 17. So that doesn't help either. But anyways, so then another event, I think that helped to solidify my determination was my crew at work was we were doing our own in-house training drill. And so this was like a firefighter rescue drill where the scenario is we have a firefighter that's down inside of a house. His pass alarm, it's an alarm that detects when you stop moving after a short period of time of no movement, it'll start to alert. And if you don't move yourself in response to that alert, it will amplify. And then it will go into full alarm, and that alerts everyone who can hear it, hey, there's a firefighter down. We need, it needs to be addressed. So the scenario was firefighter down inside of a house, like in a closet. His pass device is going off. And so, everybody was taking turns. We're all going and, taking turns in the rotation. And so it was my turn to be the down firefighter in that closet. And at that time I had a crew of 4. It was me plus 3. And so in that drill, they come in, they find me, they're extracting me from the closet, dragging me through the house, and we get to a window that they're now going to try to push me out of with our 4th guy outside the window, and to make it as realistic as possible, I was not going to give them any help. One of the challenges sometimes with training is the one who's playing the victim or the rescue dummy kind of will move a little bit and try to help them. But anyway, so we're trying to make this as realistic as possible. And frankly, this was because we do have a lot of overweight firefighters. And this isn't just in my department. This is a nationwide, cultural wide problem. So they struggled big time, and these are not weak guys. Really, to them, they were looking at it as, hey, we need to work on this as a crew. We need to work on our ability to rescue each other if needed. But after it was all over with and I was reflecting on it, I knew that I had become a liability, that I was not a functioning member of my crew that was going to help make sure everyone goes home in the morning. I had become that one that increased the likelihood of someone not going home, myself included.
We have 2 wake-up calls with the physical and the liver, and then we have with the training, and there's about a year going on between the 2. Did you hear of NSNG during that time frame or at that point, or?
No, it was that came after the fact. It was like, I had a domino of things that happened. Also in that time frame, I had gotten COVID and got extremely sick. And my entire family got sick.
He was just starting to talk about COVID, and not to make this about me because this is Daniel's episode right here, but I'll tell you this as somebody that has gotten COVID, it's so much worse with people that have inflammation going on, because inflammation just makes it so much worse. And for those of you that know me, I was over 550 pounds. Luckily, when I got COVID, I had lost 300 pounds or whatever it is. And I would have to assume that me getting COVID at over 550 pounds, the chances of making it through it was slim to none. And if I did make it through it, my goodness, it would have kicked my butt. But he's back, and this is his episode. So, okay, you got COVID.
Yes. So the COVID kicked my butt big time. I was actually very, very nervous and afraid that I was going to end up in a hospital on a respirator. I got to that point. And but then even when I got cleared to go back to work, it took months before I felt like I was actually able to function. But I could see a marked decrease in my cardiovascular capabilities, which weren't that great to begin with. But like walking up a set of stairs became super laborious. And even on all the medical calls we go on, we're carrying equipment and stuff in there. And I would dread every time we pull up to a house and I saw a driveway that went up the hill, and then there's a set of stairs to go in the house. And then there's going to be a set of stairs inside the house, and the patient is always upstairs. Okay. Nobody's on the ground floor. So anyways, so all these things compound, and they're like going, all in the back of my mind. And then I hear the episode with Vinnie on Mike Rose podcast, and I'm just listening to this, and I'm like, I firmly believe I'm hearing truth. I'm hearing truth being spoken by someone who has an authority on this, who has an extensive background with proven results with clients. And so I said, why not? Why not give this a go? I was already of the mindset, hey, meat's actually a healthy thing to eat. Fat's not going to kill you. But frankly, I just needed to cut out sugar and grain from my diet. And then one of the things that helped me to make this connection, I've raised a lot of pigs. Okay. And when we take a pig to slaughter, we want them fat. Well, how do we fatten a pig? We fatten them on skim milk, fruit and vegetable refuse, and a grain-heavy diet. So I'm like, if I'm eating like a pig, of course I'm going to look like a pig. Okay, going to market. So, anyways, I kind of talked about it for a couple of weeks, just to, kind of give people a heads up. Hey, this is what I'm about to do. So I'm not asking or telling anyone to join me in this, but this is what I'm going to do. And thankfully, I've had, moderate to good support at home, pretty good support at work, because, at the fire station, we're there for a 24-hour shift. And so we eat 3 meals generally together every shift. And so in all that, I just, I started off just by whatever was being prepared at home. I would just omit anything that was bread or starch. I cut away the sweets. And so in, I think it was about 6 weeks, I dropped like 20 pounds. Okay, in that first 6 weeks, 20 pounds just dropped off of me. My starting weight, my all-time high that I know of was 250. Yeah, it was 250. And so, you know, and I was carrying most of that. Well, I had a liver that was infused with fat, and there was a noticeable budge that started below my diaphragm and extended all the way down to the bottom of my torso. But and also too, I didn't realize it until after the fact, seeing all the before and after pictures. I was carrying a lot in my face, and all over my body, my arms, my legs. You know, I was carrying excess fat everywhere, but it was really noticeable in my face and on my gut. But anyway, so, you know, I start slimming up. People are noticing. And anyways, then I kind of stalled out for a minute. And I remember posting this in the Facebook group about having stalled out, and some pointed questions were asked, you know, well, what are you still consuming? And I knew what the problem was. It was the beer. And even though I had trimmed it back, trimming back doesn't fix a problem. And initially, when I faced the fact that I was going to have to cut beer from, I actually had a moment where I was like, but I don't want to give this up, you know? And I had to come to accept that this was something that had power over me. And when, you know, growing up, I had a grandfather who was an alcoholic, and I grew up hearing stories about what his behavior was like. And so I never thought of myself as being an over drinker, okay, because I didn't behave like him. But I was suffering the same health problems that, frankly, he developed. But anyways, so after, you know, some deep reflection, I decided, okay, this has got to go. And I more or less cut it out of my life. There have been occasions when I'd be at, you know, someone's birthday party or someone, and a buddy of mine there will just hand me a beer. And so, you know, I'd sip it with them. But other than that, I haven't had it, and I don't miss it nearly like I thought I would. Because those occasions when I have had a bottle, afterwards, I just think, gosh, why did I like this so much? But anyways, so after that, after cutting the beer, the weight started to melt rapidly.
Nice.
So
I believe Robyn has a question for you.
I want to say that I recall Daniel coming on when he was a new person and getting into the group, and he's not alone in how that process happened, where, you know, there's that one last thing that you just can't give up. And then I think I'm guilty of it too, where I was like, I'm doing really well, but you know, my joints are all achy and I can't explain why. And that's when the questions start coming. What's the thing that you're not telling us? What are you not getting, cleaning up out of your diet? And you really have to take that hard step and look at every single thing that you are eating and drinking, everything that passes through your lips, and say, is this something that is helping me or hurting me? And really have that moment where you say, I've got to get rid of all of this or I'm never going to heal completely. So it's pretty interesting that Daniel found that for himself. And it's the same way, kind of like we've got to have these questions. These might be hard questions, but you got to take a look at them and answer them. Daniel, are you back?
Oh yeah, I'm hearing you fine. I'm hearing you
Okay.
just fine. So all right, so I'm very much a work in progress myself still.
So just recap really quick. He just said that he saw the heaviest he saw was 250 pounds. I do want to ask him when he gets back here what his weight loss is to date. I don't think I've ever gotten that from him, but in the pictures of his before and after, or before and current, there is a significant difference in his face, everything. And I hope he gets back here because I really want to talk to him about some of the physical things he's doing now, like hiking. And I mean, for all of December, I believe it was, he's doing 100 burpees a day. Just to let you guys know, burpees suck. One burpee sucks. 100 of them in a day is bonkers. But another question we need to get to about is he has an ongoing concern, ongoing passion for first responders, and just what he's seeing, like a decline in the health and their ability. And a question I had personally was, I would have to assume he's seeing that in a lot of his people that he's getting called up to see, what that looks like.
So like I was saying, I myself am still very much a work in progress. Okay. And so basically what I'm trying to do is just be a positive influence and serve as an example. And, and I've had people come to me and, and it'll be someone that I haven't seen in a while. And I'll notice, like, wow, you've really lost some weight. And they'll tell me, yeah, man, you inspired me to, to do something about it. And so I'm seeing that happen. But as far as an official capacity, no, not yet. When it comes to diet, unfortunately, within the fire service, we're a government entity, and we're very much going to be adhering to the conventional so-called wisdom about what a balanced diet is and blah, blah, blah. So, I have not, not even really attempted to do anything in like an official capacity. But anytime someone wants to talk to me, I'll talk to them about it, and I just tell them the bare bones truth. First, you have to start with your diet. You're not going to be able to outrun the garbage that you're shoveling in your mouth. You can't outrun it. You can't outlift it. Youth will help to compensate, for a while, but it gets to a point when your body's metabolic health suffers so much that it's going to manifest eventually. We want to think of it as, oh, well, this is just the normal part of getting older. I'm just going to get fatter. I'm just going to get more tired. My testosterone is going to drop. And I'm just not going to be able to do what I used to be able to do. Well, that's horse crap. So really it boils down to what we're eating, and then it's everything else. It's getting proper exercise daily. It's getting adequate sleep as much as possible. It's really, really tough within our job to do that, to establish any healthy patterns. But when you can, that's when we need to be doubling down. That's the area that I am working really hard on for myself. I still have some very bad habits, that is not very conducive to proper sleep. So anyways, as far as the fire service goes, really my realm of influence is within my station and on my crew. I'll have to say, for the most part, like I said, my crew has been very supportive. They happily allow me to cook all the meals because I don't make anything that sucks, and they enjoy everything that I cook for the most part. And yeah, and everyone is pretty much on board with fitness. I think Robyn has a question.
Hey, you're taking my job.
Yep, he's a natural. If we can get that internet to be spot on. Kurt has asked, how long did it take to lower your liver numbers?
So I'm a pretty bad, I'm a bad patient. I've never been one to go to the doctor unless I broke something on my body. You know, I've been harped on about seeing a doctor and everything, but I just don't. So I have not yet seen any numbers. We've recently instituted a new program, though. Our command staff has embraced getting what's called an NFPA physicals. NFPA is the National Fire Protection Agency. And so they, so there's they give recommendations. It's not really mandates or anything like that we have to follow, but they're recommendations that they suggest. And so for the longest time, we never even had the option of getting a physical at work. Well, now we're making that option happen, and it started a few years ago. But some of our command staff have stepped it up, which I think is awesome. And we've contracted with a new company to handle our physicals. And from what I've seen, it's going to be on par with that one that I had when I went out to UC San Francisco. So I've got an appointment. It's coming up sometime soon. I don't know. I don't have a date and time yet because we've got over 650 firefighters to put through this. So it takes a while to work everyone through this. So I will have numbers coming up soon. I still have my records from that visit a couple of years back, but in my mind, I don't really need the numbers because my physical appearance as well as my capabilities are enough proof for me. I know the difference that I have within myself. So, but I am very curious myself about the numbers because not just my liver numbers, but I have a condition, thalassemia, which this is a blood disorder. It's related to anemia. And so thankfully I have and I don't know all the technical jargon for this, but let's just say I have the mild version of this. A severe case, someone does not live very long. Then there's someone who can be moderate and they just have severe health problems from it alone. But for me, what it means is I have exceptionally small red blood cells. So I will naturally have a higher red blood cell count because my body's trying to make up for the fact that I have smaller cells. But it also means I have a lower capability of carrying hemoglobin and iron. And so, anyways, that's some other stuff, from those tests that I had, they said, yeah, your hemoglobin is low. Your iron's running on the low side. And so I'm going to be interested to see how all that other stuff compares. They also did a full lipid, panel and everything. And at that time, actually, those numbers were, quote, good. and we'll see. I'm curious to see what the relationship there is as well. So as far as the liver numbers go, I unfortunately don't have an answer for that, but I will one day soon. And I'll be publicly, open about that whenever I get that, because I think that anytime someone is on this journey, if you're willing to share it, you need to. We have a just as a good human, striving to do better for ourselves and for others around us, we need to make information available.
Robyn, did you have a question?
There's one more question, and it's not actually directly to Daniel. So I'm going to ask the question, but I'm also going to answer the question. This is from Maribel, and she says, how does Vinnie suggest to get away from alcohol if it's hurting weight loss? So I'm going to start with, who Vinnie is. We all, the three of us here on the show right now, are followers of NSNG, which is Vinnie Tortorich's no sugars, no grains. So that's how we know each other. But at Less of Me Success Stories, we do want to accept and talk to people of all ranges of the ketogenic diet. So hopefully we'll get some people who aren't just as NSNG friendly as us. But we started with people we knew. So that's where we are. But to answer, I do want to say I don't want to speak for Vinnie because I am not a representative of Vinnie. But if it's hurting your weight loss, I know that he himself has talked about some friends and family of members of his who have gone through AA as their support group to help them get through if it's a problem of that sense. Otherwise, he wants everyone to recognize that when you drink alcohol of any type, that you know that you are drinking something that is in fact poison, and that your body's going to metabolize the alcohol first. So everything else that you're trying to do, all those goals for eating high fat and low carb, are going to be put on hold until after your body metabolizes that alcohol. So, and then the last thing would be anything that has sugar or a grain, like the beer, would not be acceptable at all in an NSNG lifestyle, or in most cases of any sort of low carb lifestyle. You don't want to have anything that has sugars or grains in it at all. So I don't want to speak for him. That would be a question to ask him directly. He's on Twitter. You can look for him there. But I did want to address that question came up. And we also, Kurt wanted to say that it does sound weird, Daniel, that they don't do physicals on the firefighters. So just an aside, is that because of this kind of epidemic of finding healthy, fit firefighters, or is it just it's always been that way and they're just starting to implement it now? And then that's all.
So this can be a really long answer, but I'm going to try to keep it down. But firefighter health has, for a long time, before I even started, I mean, back when I got hired, our fitness coach at that time, when I was in recruit school, he told us, he said, look, my goal is to get y'all as physically fit as possible. But I know that as soon as y'all leave here and go to the station, you're going to start eating crap and you're going to get fat. That's all there is to it. And you can look at almost any engine company and see expanded waistlines. And even though these guys might be fit in the sense that they're strong, and they really will have some great cardiovascular health, but we're carrying around a lot of extra weight. And I really believe that a big part of the reason why so many firefighters are dying from cardiovascular disease and cancer is, first of all, we're just eating garbage. And then we're subjecting our bodies to extensive amounts of stress, with the calls, with the sleep deprivation, but then we'll go and work out super crazy intense fitness programs that in the long run are damaging, in my opinion. I don't have anything to back that up. So I've just embraced a much more moderate approach to fitness. I know, Scott, you're talking about the 100 burpees a day challenge, and that sounds crazy and everything, but honestly, you know, I didn't just wake up one day and bust out 100 burpees, you know, all at one time. I staggered it out, and then I started pushing them together, and then I started just incorporating them into an overall workout. So, you know, so that's how we need to be addressing our fitness. Is we need to crawl before we walk, and walk before we run. But so many will just, and this is what I did, jump right into it and go, you know, full hog, and next thing you know, you've got massive inflammation and you're doing damage to yourself. But I also too think that, you know, we've got all this extra stress on our hearts already from the unhealthy diet, and then we go and we'll try to just start running marathons, you know, or doing hard sprints and doing these super high intensity workouts. So, yeah, there in the fire service, I think we have a higher, more morbid obesity and metabolic health problem percentage-wise than in the general population. So, you know, so much of that can be attributed to the job itself, but I always go back to it's really centric to the way we're eating. You know, almost every fire station has a pantry where it's going to be stocked with the worst of all things you can, you know, put in your mouth, candies and, you know, candy bars and popcorn and, you know, the stuff that we lie to ourselves and say it's healthy, you know, like protein bars and all that kind of stuff. And so people will go, and that's where I was going there and getting stuff out of there, and I was stress eating. And so I was eating copious amounts, but it's just bad for you. And that's how a lot of people will cope with the stress of the job, on top of excessive alcohol consumption and other unhealthy habits. Did that answer the question?
Yes, I believe it did. And if it's okay with you, we're going to try to keep you on a little bit longer, a little bit over, since we have some internet issues. I want to try to take advantage of it while it's working. So this, myself and this group, we like numbers. So two-part question here. Could you tell us how much you have lost up to this point? And also, in that weight loss, what have you seen? How has it impacted your job? You know, your life and your job.
So, like I said, I got up to 250 pounds, and I lost 55. So I got down to 195. Like I said, I'm still very much a work in progress. And I'm still working on healthy habits, namely for my sleep. So yeah, but as far as the impact that it's had on me, honestly, a big thing has been my attitude, and my mental state. I was battling depression big time, and the depression wasn't just because of the stress of the job or because of home life. It was also being fueled by this imbalance of hormones that comes with eating a high carb diet. And so I definitely noticed a big change in my attitude and my demeanor. I used to have and unfortunately, I'm afraid this might follow me for a while still. I had a reputation as being the angriest person in the fire department. And it really hurts my heart to think of that. So I'm, that's one of the big things, both at home and at work, is really just my attitude, having more positive, being more driven, setting goals for myself, whereas before I was just super apathetic and lazy. And so, and it's become increasingly, I don't want to say easy, but I've become more capable of embracing those things, embracing working out every day and embracing pursuing goals. It's like when this challenge for the 100 burpees a day, which honestly right now I've slacked off because of this long hike that I did. But I set that goal too for my birthday, to do this long hike, where my goal initially was to just see how far I could go in 24 hours. Okay. And so seeking out challenges where I can embrace being uncomfortable. Let's see, I was telling Robyn earlier about how hearing the interview with Michael Easter, who wrote a book called The Comfort Crisis, and then also the interview with Colin O'Brady, who wrote The 12-Hour Walk. The combination of those two really have inspired me to really, not only in my job. I mean, it's important that we firefighters get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because our line of work is in general an uncomfortable business. Being in superheated IDLH or immediately dangerous to life and health environments, that is extremely uncomfortable, and we need to be able to function at our best in those environments. And if we're always seeking comfort, whether it be the food that we eat, or sitting on our butt, or what we're drinking, or giving into whatever impulses that come on us, then it gets harder and harder to function well in uncomfortable situations. But and also too, I would say for the general population, we as a whole, as a society, in the West especially, we need to reject a lot of the comforts that modern living has offered to us. And we need to do things that, frankly, will test our mettle. Our ancestors did this because they had to. That was just life. They had to walk 100 miles to go get supplies or whatever. They had to do without certain things. They knew what it was like to be uncomfortable, and they just accepted it as a part of life. But now it is so easy to be comfortable all the time. We can just go to a thermostat and set it at whatever temperature we want to be at, and lounge around in perfect comfort while we stream endless shows on Netflix and get in a death scroll on our phone while we shovel popcorn and nachos in our mouths. So anyways, I've become a big believer in challenging ourselves. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing it. It's both for my personal growth as well as in my job. Because if I'm going to be the best that I can be while I'm at work, then I can't be taking days off. I can't. I've recently had a conversation with someone when I talked about, life happens sometimes, and I don't get around to doing what I need to do. That's why I don't schedule rest days. Life is going to give me rest days. And so, but the comment was, oh, well, I think you're entitled to taking a day off. And I said, no, I cannot be in that mindset that I'm in any way, shape, or form entitled to taking it easy. Okay, because once I start down that road, then I start making excuses for myself whenever I find myself at, I don't know, 8 o'clock in the evening, and I need to be getting ready for bed, but I realize, hey, I haven't done 100 burpees yet, and so so I have to do these things. I have to follow through. There's a really good series of sermons that I've been listening to in podcast form, where he was talking about self-discipline and self-control. And when you have embraced both self-discipline and self-control, you enter a realm of self-mastery. And I wouldn't say that I have mastered myself yet, but that's what I'm striving for. And it's like my ultimate goal here is not just to be slim and trim. Weight loss is an added bonus here. My pursuit is in optimal health. So with that.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's so funny that you actually said that, because Robyn and I and her husband and a couple other people had lunch today, and we literally had the exact conversation of, we try to make ourselves so comfortable it's to our demise, and we need to embrace the suck sometime. So it's just very fitting that you bring that up. Are you able to hear us? Because you disappeared really quick.
I can hear you fine.
Okay, perfectly.
I'm just letting you know that as soon as you said that, Eddie came on and said, people who aren't in the fight chasing the dream will always suggest taking the easy way out. So how perfect was that?
Yep.
And that was one of our lunch members today. So we're running almost. We're getting to that 10-minute late mark. So I just got two more questions for you, if you don't mind. We're talking about goals and embracing the suck. Do you have any? I mean, you did your hike. Do you have any goals that you kind of have out on the horizon that you want to go or do, or you're just kind of taking it day by day right now?
Yeah, I'm kind of taking it day by day. Right now, I'm focusing on getting caught back up on my my burpees because I wasn't doing them on the trail. Matter of fact, I ran into a guy at one of the trail shelters, and we just chatted for a minute, and I was telling him what I was doing as far as the hike goes. And I said, yeah, I'm already engaged in another challenge where I'm doing 100 burpees a day. And he looked at me like I was insane. And he was like, man, I could never do that. And so right now, I need to finish those burpees out. The name of the game is, by the end of the month, I have 3,100 burpees, under my belt. And I'll be, but still though, it's gotten to the point where basically doing that is going to become an integral part of my fitness program. But as far as other challenges, not right now. I've got some big things coming up. Namely, I'm about to get promoted. I'm going to, and that's going to take me into a whole new realm with my job. And so I got to work, be ready for that. And so I don't have room in my mind right now.
Okay, and then
but there will be more. There will be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, you're a beast, man. I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to be doing some amazing things. So I'm going to let Robyn cut me off if I get this wrong, but we're trying to do one last consistent question for all of our guests. And me being the horrendous host that I am, don't quite remember that question, but I'm hoping I get it right. Do you have any tips or words of wisdom for people? Am I kind of right-ish? Yeah, so any words of wisdom for anyone on their journey?
Gosh, honestly, it's to have your why. The why you are going to do what you're going to do. You know, if you can't answer why, then how can you develop a plan or a purpose for what you're going to do and how you're going to accomplish that? So my why is, first of all, to be a better father, husband, person in general, better for myself. You know, I don't know how long I have on this earth, but I'm going to make that time that I do have the best possible. Because what good am I to, you know, the people I go to church with, my family, or anyone that I encounter, if I'm in poor health? And then my other why is because I have a duty, that I'm duty bound. When people call 911, they expect the best to be showing up at their house, not some slob who's apathetic and you know, doesn't really care about himself. So so there's a dutiful side of it, and then there's just, you know, that just characteristic side of it too, that I'm here for a purpose and I am looking to fulfill it. And so really, people, you've got to come up with a why. You know, why do you want to get healthier? You know, answer that right off the bat. And, you know, whenever I hear someone, you know, say, when I talk to them about improving their diets and removing bad habits like tobacco and alcohol, you know, and I hear someone say, well, you got to die of something. And I'm like, well, hey, yeah, death is inevitable for us all. But that is such an ignorant statement, because I guarantee you that person, if he starts to feel chest pain, or he has a pain anywhere else, or he's having difficulty breathing, eventually they're going to go see a doctor. Why are they going to go see a doctor? Because they don't want to die yet. Okay? So why not address it with the core fundamental values that support appropriate in the optimal health?
I love that. That's perfect. I actually wrote that down. Have your why. That's and that's good stuff. I think that would almost make a good little clip if I do say so myself. So, Daniel, thank you so much for being here and chatting with us and just sharing your journey with us. Robyn, do you have anything you'd like to say before I wrap us up?
Just, Daniel, do you have anything that you want to plug, or ways that people can find you and reach you?
Yeah, so I'm on the various social media platforms, although I constantly consider divorcing myself from them. But I'm on Facebook, of course, like anybody else. I have a page for my farm. It's East West Farm. I'm not super active with that right now, but you can go in there and look at, you know, the things that we're doing or have done. On Instagram, I have 2 accounts, East West Farmer and The Real Fireman Dan. And then on Twitter, I'm The Real Fireman Dan. So yeah, you can go to any of those, and you know, I post progress and you know, what I'm engaged in there.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. All right, Daniel. Hey, buddy, we are grateful you're on here. You inspire so many people, and there's some great things out on the horizon for you. I could already tell. You're a massive influence to your peers and everything. So thank you so much, folks. We just do this purely out of our passion to encourage people and inspire others to just improve their life. We don't have a production team. You're kind of looking at it right here. We are not tech people either. So we're just fueled by our passion and our for this. And we just want to just encourage you all. And if you think this could benefit anybody at all, share, like, subscribe, whatever the kids tell you to do. Smash it. I think that's a word. I'm too old to know that. But anyhow, just get the word out there, help us grow, and I think we could really influence and help other people out in this world, and just that's what we're trying to do, right? Just improve everybody's life. Thank you for now, and join us in a couple more Thursdays, 7 p.m. Central Time. And for our next guest, I think you might know the next guest coming up. So we'll see you then. Take care.